Hi, my name is Colette. I'm a junior and my major is political science. I think that athletics does an adequate job at representing both female and male sports here at Lehigh, but I do think that the student body represents them differently in terms of showing up to games or tournaments and how much attention they actually pay to each team and how much energy they're willing to divert into attending those events. I absolutely do not believe that the cheer team receives equal treatment and representation compared to the male sports, football, lacrosse, whatever you name it. Since I joined the team my freshman year, we were allocated to the wrestling room because they refused to give us mats. And if you know anything about cheerleading, that's an extreme safety hazard in regards to tumbling because the mat is too squishy. It's not safe to tumble on. It also sinks in when you're stunting. It's not safe. In regards to literal just physical treatment, it's absolutely not equal. I can recount the last game that we were at. I asked them to tape my ankle because I have hypermobility syndrome, which means I don't have enough connective tissue. My bones and my joints are very wobbly, and they told me that they would do it for me that time, but moving forward I need to get a brace because they will no longer be wrapping my ankle or giving me tape, and they absolutely would not see me. They told me that they are reserved for the varsity sports. So overall, just my experience at Lehigh, they have not given us equal treatment in terms of health, resources, funding. We always have to purchase our own backpacks. We have to purchase our own merch. Anything really that we want outside of just going to the games, we have to pay for. Even last year, we didn't have enough cars in the team to give girls rides to the games. They expected us to Uber rather than providing us with transportation, or to bus, which it's not cost effective, especially when you're asking freshmen to pay for their own Ubers if they don't have a car. So they expect us to show up to these events, but then at the same time, they don't want to give us the resources necessary to attend the events and to do our sport adequately. I've cheered for 13 years and I've definitely noticed a serious objectification within the sport, especially in regards to what we are wearing, how we have to dance, how we have to portray our bodies in regards to the sport, and that lends to why it becomes entertainment and why it's looked at entertainment more than it is a sport. And at Lehigh, I think they even regard us more as entertainment than they do a sport. I can recall last year during one of the women's basketball games, or it might have been a men's, it was a basketball game. It was Female in Sports Day. They called all of the female athletes and all of the female sports teams up except for us. And there was a direct exclusion there. And then once they realized, then they went, oh, you guys can go up too at the very last second. And we ran on with the rest of the team. There was a very clear exclusion there in regards of who they viewed as athletes and who they didn't view as athletes. So, and I think it's also because they expect us to attend these games, and so because they think we're there to please the crowd and not actually there to do our own stunting and our own skills, they look at us more as entertainment than they do as an actual sport. And I've experienced that in all 13 years of my cheering, in competitive cheerleading, in scholastic cheerleading. Here it is not any different, and Lehigh has not made any effort to make that change. To raise awareness and advocate for gender equity within cheer, I think it's going to have to start with deconstructing the biases around cheer, which have historically been very sexualizing and stereotypical in nature. We've always tended to sexualize cheerleaders from the length of the skirts, from the cropped length of the shells. In general, I think it's just going to take a lot of deconstructing people's own perception of how they view cheerleaders, what they expect cheerleaders to be, how they expect cheerleaders to look, which is a really big thing, because I think when there are cheerleaders that go outside the natural perception of what people think they're supposed to look like, they automatically assume their athletic abilities, they assume whether they're good or not, and I think there's a lot of body image that's tied in with that. In terms of just gender equity, I think that schools, institutions, competitions need to start recognizing cheerleading as a sport, and they need to recognize the athletic skill that's required to do these sports. I think because it is not standardized in the way that maybe lacrosse, soccer, football is, they don't view it as athletic ability, even though I would arguably say that it is one of the most high intensity sports and it is one of the most dangerous sports, which is proven year after year. I can attest to that. I've broken my arm 3 times from cheer. I've had 2 leg surgeries. I've broken my spine. It is a very dangerous sport, and I think people need to look at it through a more serious lens and understand the capability of the athletes that are within the sport. Competitions like UCA, NCA, the National Cheerleading Organization, Cheerleading Worlds, they recognize the athletic ability that it takes to compete, and that's why they have those institutions in place, but it's still lacking in universities and schools, and that's why it's so underrepresented and underfunded, and especially because it isn't as valued as a sport, because it is not as standardized.
Hi, my name is Blair. I'm a sophomore studying political science, and this is my 2nd year on the Lehigh cheer team. I think Lehigh definitely does try to provide equality for men and women's sports. For example, when I see an advertisement for a men's basketball game, it is usually paired with an advertisement for a female basketball game. But I think when it comes to the student body, it's clear that they don't view them equally. There will be 2 basketball games back-to-back, men's and women's, yet the turnout for the men's is significantly higher, the energy is significantly higher, so it just shows how the student body views the 2 sports. Even though cheer is a club varsity sport, I still feel like as an organization we are neglected. We are expected to be at every home football game and every home basketball game, yet we are not given the resources to perform adequately at those games. We've been asked in the past to perform these elaborate performances and do all these different things, yet when we come to practice, our mats are either put in a place where we can't have access to them, or last year we were kicked out of the practice space that we once had and we're left with no mats and nowhere to practice. So it just feels as if though we're a second thought to everyone about athletics, and everyone who expects us to be at these games doesn't really think about how we're real people and a real team that need real resources. I would definitely say that yes, since being on the Lehigh cheer team, we have been objectified. We were asked to be at a wrestling match. I believe it was last fall, and before we went out to the mat and anything started, we were sitting around waiting, and an older man approached us asking us if we were excited for this match. And as cheerleaders, we have to keep that peppy face and always sound excited, so we're like, yes, we're so excited to be here. And then he followed that answer by saying, oh, well, y'all probably only wrestle in the fraternity houses. So we were all a bit flabbergasted by that answer, and that's not the first time that that's happened. Older men at football games and other sporting events just think they have the right to say anything to us. We've been met by, oh, you should smile more, or comments just like that. And I think it's especially interesting since coming to Lehigh, I have received more comments like that. I grew up in Texas, so you would think that being a cheerleader there would equal more objectification, but since coming to Lehigh, it has definitely, I would say, skyrocketed, because I almost never experienced that at home, and I've experienced it multiple times here. I don't know if it's because our uniforms are cropped and that 6 inches of stomach makes the world of a difference to these older men, but I definitely think since coming to Lehigh, it has increased, and I am saddened by that. I do believe our organization is inadequately funded, because we are expected to buy all of our own merchandise, backpacks, clothing, basically anything we need to be on the team, we have to purchase ourselves, unlike other sports teams that are sponsored and receive all of this for free or through their organization. We also don't have enough funding from the school to practice safely. A mat for cheerleading costs around $600, and I think we're given roughly $500 for the entire year. And without these mats, we're unable to practice safely. And I think it's really a shame that our program is expected and asked to be at all these events and perform well, yet we don't have the resources or the funding to practice like that. I think to advocate for gender equity, especially with cheerleading, it has to begin with deconstructing what cheerleading is and looking at what we actually do versus how we may appear. I think Lehigh can definitely take a step forward with this by advocating for us, for example, in Women in Sports Days, or anytime women's sports are just recognized overall, just simply being included in this and bringing awareness to the general public that we are a sport, we do work hard, we're not just performers there to look nice and entertain you.
Hi, I'm Alex Bauman. I'm a freshman, and this is my first year on the cheerleading team. Yeah, so I feel like there's not enough female representation in sports. Even just when people are attending sports games, they're most likely to attend a men's football game, a men's basketball game. The other day we were at a women's basketball game. There was not much of a crowd at all, and then once the men came on, a lot of people came from eating dinner at Stabler. It was just a much bigger crowd. It really showed that people were more interested in this men's sports than the women's sports completely. I feel like the men's sports teams here and the female sports teams here receive equal treatment, whether that is like medical treatment or just advertising on campus. But I do think people engage more with the men's sports and they have more interest in going to see them versus like women's sports. So I feel like the cheerleading team is not funded by the school at all. Even if it's like a charity issue, like donation, like we're not funded at all. Even at one of our games, it was like torrential downpour and we were in paper bags, just like ponchos. We didn't look good. We looked like trash bags on ESPN. It was just bad. So I really would appreciate like a rain jacket. I think we would look more professional, and we're representing the university. So I think, cheerleading team is a big part of university. It like represents the spirit. It's kind of like a core of I think it's like the core of a school. So I think it's not right that we're not funded and we're representing your university, so you want us to look good. So I think a big issue at this school is not a lot of students want to go to sporting events, whether that's basketball, football, wrestling, wherever we're cheering at, and they don't even see what we're doing at these games or at practices. They think we just have a white backpack and we walk around campus. That's just not the case. We have to learn cheers, dances. We come here a week early in the summer to learn all of that. So, we don't just have a bow in our hair and a white backpack. We actually have to lift girls up, and we have to cheer at every single game. And I just think if more people went to the games, it would give a lot of the more cheerleaders respect.
Hi, I'm Alexa, and this is my first year on the cheer team.
Hi, I'm Alyssa. I'm a first year, and this is my first year on the cheer team. I feel like at Lehigh they do a good job, at least with social media and advertising games with equal representation in male and female sports. But overall, I feel like still from the student representation side, it's not as well watched.
Definitely not, and in terms of apparel, for me, I came here early the first week, and there was no uniform that fit me, and there was lack of uniforms. We just got stuck with the last size, whether they were our size or not, and I had to pay extra money, go in my own free time, go take an Uber to go to the tailors to get a uniform that fit me. And I feel if it was a men's sport, they would have had people order them and tailor to your specific size.
So actually, yes, at one of our football games this season, there were other student athletes in the stands, and when I went to get a sip of my water, they actually yelled at me, asked me if there was any structure to our team or if we were just there to wear short skirts. So that was not the best feeling, and especially to be disrespected by male student athletes was not the greatest.
Yeah, so in terms of transportation, we don't even have the ability to be able, if we wanted to go to an away game such as Bucknell, which is something that's pretty close, we don't have any means of transportation to get there, no room on the bus with the band, so it just limits our options.
I think the best way to advocate for change is to spread information. I think being educated is one of the most important things, and I think if we were to promote more women's games or promote more of what the women do at practice and all of the hard work that they put in and show how similar it is to their male counterparts, I think a lot more people would gain respect and show their support for women's sports.